Welcome to Our Darlington, the podcast where we explore the heart and soul of Darlington through its local independent businesses and the people that make it special. I'm James Carver.
I'm Henry Carver, and we're here to shine a spotlight on our beloved town. Join us as we sit down with the passionate local people to delve into their stories and uncover the unique contributions they make to our community and to find out about the town where we live.
Get ready to be inspired by the people and stories that make Darlington truly special. In today's episode, we have Mark Bell, the co-founder of the Team Luke Foundation, a truly inspirational boy and a fantastic story. What are the listeners going to have in this week's episode?
Again, inspirational story as to why the Team Luke Foundation has been founded. Some fantastic fundraising events that have taken place. Budgie smugglers, swims at night time, incredible feats of individual effort in terms of 100-mile runs, significant distances on bikes, and Family Fun Day coming up this weekend.
We are honoured to welcome Mark Bell to our Darlington. Mark is the co-founder and chair of the Team Luke Foundation, a charity established in memory of his son, Luke, who tragically passed away from neuroblastoma at the age of 8 in December 2018. Since its inception in 2019, the foundation has been dedicated to raising awareness of neuroblastoma, supporting affected families and funding critical research to improve diagnosis and treatment of this aggressive childhood cancer. A very warm welcome, Mark.
Thank you. Nice to be here. Cheers.
That's a tear-jerking introduction. Wow, can you tell us about Luke and...
How long have you got? I absolutely can, yes. So Luke as a boy was just a remarkable kid, like any kind of young lad, really. Loved being active, loved his family, loved gaming, really loved rugby, enjoyed coming to watch me until he was old enough to play himself. So he went through kind of Rugrats rugby with Andy Dryden for a couple of years and then started at Mowden in the minis. Sadly, in 2017, he started showing some symptoms, including being really, really fatigued quite a lot. Just being kind of under the weather. He started to have a bit of a limp and would ask for me to carry him to school. So after a couple of attempts with the GP, we eventually had a diagnosis in April 2017 that he had cancer in his blood. So me and him were pretty much blue lighted straight away up to the RVI in Newcastle. And then after a few more kind of tests and scans there, and took 2 attempts to get the diagnosis right, they told us he had a high-risk neuroblastoma, which is a very rare form of cancer. Affects only a small number of kids each year, normally between up to the age of 5, so it's quite rare for Luke anyway at the age of 7 to be diagnosed. And it's one of those cancers that's really quite aggressive and can be. The survival rate's pretty low, but also there is kids that clearly do survive and go on to live long and healthy lives. So Luke went through frontline treatment, lots of chemo. He had surgery to remove quite a significant tumour that was attached to his adrenal gland. And then he had some radiotherapy. December 2017, we were given the kind of all clear. He was in remission, had no cancer in his system. So, pretty good news at that point. He then started a course of immunotherapy, which is where they basically try and recode your immune system to be able to fight cancerous cells itself, which is, I think, it's probably the future of cancer treatment, but it's still kind of in its infancy and still being developed, although it is a recognised treatment, clearly. Sadly, I think April 2018, he was just routine scans after the immunotherapy show that the cancer had returned. We were told at that point that, in fact, we were told prior to that really, that a relapse of neuroblastoma was pretty significant, really, really drops the chances of survival. However, we still held hope, and throughout it all, Luke was incredibly well. We got some really great times out of him, lots of travelling, lots of spending time with family and doing all the stuff you really kind of want to do. I was really kind of clear about keeping Luke protected from what was happening and making sure he was really positive, and he knew that he was unwell. But made sure he thought he was going to be absolutely fine, to make his mindset as positive as possible, which at times was pretty challenging when you know what you're going through. After he relapsed, he went on a couple of clinical trials. He then was accepted onto a kind of brand new clinical trial which involved treatment in London and Southampton, which was quite kind of challenging just the travel for him. Although he loved flying down from Newcastle to Southampton and being all the first class rail travel that LNER afforded him for free, which is great. But yeah, long story short, we got to the point where tests kind of showed that the neuroblastoma has just aggressively spread across his body, and we were told in December it was terminal, and he had kind of months, possibly weeks to live. It was only literally a couple of weeks after that, unfortunately, he passed away at home, literally the day before Christmas Eve, which was obviously pretty tragic. Really kind of, don't really want to go into that too much because it was obviously quite a dark period. As part of the kind of clinical trial process, Luke had been accepted onto a clinical trial in Barcelona, which was seen as kind of a beacon, really, of with some promise. We had to raise £125,000 for that to happen, which is obviously quite a significant amount. We achieved that, we did that, but unfortunately Luke didn't last long enough to make it to Barcelona, which we kind of, on reflection, we can't decide if it was a blessing or not, because I think the thought of him being in Barcelona and it not going that well would have been even more difficult to manage. So we had this money left over, so after kind of spending some time mourning and kind of getting over what had happened and grieving, etc., we decided as a family we wanted to do something with that money, and we kind of went through a number of options and ultimately kind of fell on building a legacy for Luke and do something positive in his name. So the foundation came around, and we call it Team Luke, and it's so basically it's called Team Luke because me and him were playing Mario Kart one day in his hospital room. And the nurse came in, and I think at that point Luke was winning, and he was asking the nurse if she was Team Daddy or Team Luke, and she just said we're all Team Luke. So that stuck for me. That became the name of it, and that's it. That's how the foundation came around. So yeah, quite a long story there.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. It's incredible to hear about Luke and what you guys must have been through as a family, and completely crushing. Can't understand what you've been through. But what we'd like to talk about today is the hugely positive things that you guys have done in Luke's name for the foundation, and what you've got coming up and how people can support you.
Yeah, so the foundation, it's very difficult to set up a charity. There's certainly lots of hoops to jump through, and you've got to be quite clear in what you want to do when you set up a charity. So we decided that we wanted to kind of base it on the experiences we had with Luke's journey. So we wanted to support better diagnosis and kind of treatment through kind of support and research projects. We want to raise awareness of the signs and symptoms of children's cancer. We're aware that there's kind of growing numbers of cases where kids are being misdiagnosed or diagnosis is being missed in itself for quite some time. And clearly in that kind of in that world, a quick diagnosis makes a big difference, or can do with some cancers. We also want to try and work more collaboratively with other charities, bring charities together. We found that we spent a lot of time at the RVI, clearly through Luke's treatment, and there's lots of charities doing really good things, but you don't often hear about them. One or two tend to work in isolation. They clearly have their own reasons for being, and quite similar to ours in a lot of regards. But I think there might be a feeling that by working with the charities, you're almost watering down your own child's legacy, which I can kind of understand. But at the same time, I want to look at it from the family's perspective who are going through that journey. And if we were fortunate, we were very well supported, but there's families out there who don't have that luxury and really need the support. So if we can help kind of signpost that better and get charities working a little bit better together and a bit more open with each other, then that's a big thing for us as well. So yeah, in terms of what we do, we've been supporting a researcher at the Institute for Cancer Research for, is this our 5th year, I think? I think by the end of this year we'll have handed over £100,000 for that, and that research is specifically working on diagnosis and kind of smarter technology around diagnosis, and obviously the ICR are also doing a lot of work around developing kind of treatments. Kids' cancer treatment, quite sadly, is just a watered down version in large of what adults get. So quite often it's the toxicity of the treatment that can really do the damage to the children as opposed to the cancer. So we're really keen to try and have try and influence that somehow going forward. We've also been able to kind of do a bit of lobbying with government around this. We managed to secure a debate in Parliament a couple of years ago, and spoke to the health minister around that. So that was really useful. We're working with a couple of other charities as well. And we've produced some kind of leaflets and posters which highlight the signs and symptoms and direct you to where to go should you seek should you need further help or support or knowledge. We've managed to get those into GP surgeries across Darlington, Teesside and children's centres. And I think there's a bit of work to be done there to try and kind of get that further afield really. I've actually just developed some good contacts in the Northwest, so hopefully by the end of this calendar year, we'll be in a similar situation across the Northwest as well. So there's growth there. Happy to talk about the kind of I suppose the more fun side of the foundation as well. Really, some of the events that some crazy people have done for us over the years, and obviously the events coming up. If we can go on to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. So you pointed towards James there for people listening. Why is he crazy?
He's one of a group of people who, since the charity started, have picked up some extra special challenges. We've had lots of people doing wonderful things, and I'm obviously very grateful. We are. It's humbling to hear of people who want to do things to raise money for us. But there's definitely a unique group of people who take that to the extreme, really. So to James, it was the Teesdale Way in a Day you did. Was it the year before last now? Was it last year?
It was 2023.
Yeah, year before last.
September, wasn't it? Yeah.
But that was inspired by one of our friends, Rich Adams, doing 100 miles again for Team Luke, I think the previous year. Yeah,
Richard Adams has done a couple of things for us as well. But I'll single yours out really, and obviously it's on your podcast I'm going to, but it was one of the more humbling ones that we've had, for the specific reason that it was probably the first one that has not been part of the group of people that are involved right from the start with the kind of inception of the foundation. Everybody else who'd done really big things that either done them as part of the, when Luke passed away just around that time to raise the money, or as an immediacy and were part of that journey, whereas yours was, obviously I knew you, it was the first that seemed to come out of the foundation being the foundation. And that in itself for me was extra special because there was less of a kind of personal link there. It was more, it came across to me as you believed in the cause that we were, we stood for, and chose to do that for the charity as opposed to it being about, Luke and Luke's family. So for us, it was, for me personally, it was very humbling, and I'll always be grateful for that.
And what events have you got coming up?
So we've actually got our biggest ever event happening this Saturday. We have a family fun day, which has been in planning for quite a long time now. It's being held at Darlington Rugby and Football Club at Blackwell Meadows on Grange Road. It's set to be really big. So we've got a company providing some giant inflatable obstacle course thing for us for kids to go wild on, and it is a pretty big set of inflatables, so that should be pretty impressive. There's a set for the kids as well. We've got outside bar and food vendors. We've got face painting. We've got the paddle company there, Paddle Project UK, are offering their kind of services for the day, so people can go along and have a go at that, with donations going to Team Luke. We've got Rugrats Rugby. Andy's coming along to do a little bit on the side as well to get some kids involved, some younger kids involved in rugby. And then alongside that, we've got a full afternoon of actual rugby on the main pitch, which is kind of where I focus my attention, really. That's what I'm best at, I think. So we have mixed touch rugby on the main pitch from 1 o'clock kicking off. And then we've got fixtures, a women's fixture at 3, which is a Team Luke representative team against the North East Barbarians team. And then at 5 o'clock, we've got a men's Team Luke fixture against, again, a North East Barbarians team. We've got players turning up from across the North East, and I think probably further afield as well, to represent all those teams. We do a similar thing on Boxing Day every year, which is always incredibly well attended, and actually it's getting to the point where it's difficult to get everybody game time because we're getting that many players turn up, which is obviously a great position to be in, and it's a wonderful thing. But yeah, back to the fun day on Saturday. We've got a barbecue and outside bar next to the main pitch as well. We've got live music on later on in the clubhouse, and we've got a couple of charities attending as well, just to get them back to the collaborating thing. We invited a couple of charities along as well to help showcase what they do. So yeah, it's set to be a really kind of fun-filled day for everybody, really. And the weather looks brilliant as well, which is the one thing we were looking at a couple of weeks ago. It wasn't looking great.
The sun's
but
going to be shining.
It's it looks like we're going to get what we need. So yeah, it should be a fantastic day.
So do we need to get tickets, and how do we get them?
Yeah, so if you look for us on Facebook, Team Luke Foundation, or you can go to teamluke.org.uk, and there's links on both of those to get tickets. Just the general admission for the family fun day is just £2 for anybody to attend. You can just turn up on the day, that's absolutely fine. However, tickets allows us to plan better, to work out what exactly we need. Although 2 days out, we're probably at the point where we can't really change too much now. But we've already sold hundreds of tickets, so we're at the stage now where it's going to be pretty lively, hopefully. But yeah, absolutely, turn up on the day, at any point during the day, and have some fun. And I'll just say, it's an opportunity to get in the sunshine, have a couple of beers and a bite to eat while your kids run wild for a couple of hours in the inflatables and tire them out on a Saturday afternoon. Or if you're into rugby, then there should be some pretty good rugby on show as well.
Well, I know what I'm doing Saturday.
Are you bringing your boots?
I might do, actually. Yeah. Will I get a game time?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah.
The touch, though.
Yeah. No, of course. Yeah, no, definitely. That's a good shout. Very much look forward to that. What about other fundraising events during the year? Is there anything else planned? Any other crazy challenges being undertaken?
So we've just had somebody do the London Marathon, which was our first for us. I called Michael Surplus, who's a work colleague who lives in Liverpool. So that was brilliant. In terms of our next events, we try and kind of keep it down how many events we actually do ourselves, because we tend to kind of almost hit the same people each time. It's all through social media. So whilst I'm very popular, I've got lots of friends. I do have the same people do the same things each time. So we like to try and let people do their own thing to reach new kind of audiences. We do have the open water swim in September 27th at Ellerton Lake, and this time there'll be options for 1 or 2 kilometre swims. Obviously, I'm looking at Jim, because Jim has done it twice.
Yep.
Yeah, both times in Budgie Smugglers with me, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely.
We are the brave, stupid ones.
Cue the picture now, please.
Yeah, just Jim's, not mine. Thanks. That was too much for anybody.
It's very cold, isn't it?
Incredibly cold. Yeah.
You do it on an evening as well?
Yes, it's at sunset, so it's fairly unique. We provide swimmers with an illuminated tow float, so you set off swimming in daylight, and the sun sets as you're completing the swim, and it creates just quite a pretty atmosphere in terms of all the tow floats in the different colours.
It was probably the most enjoyable event I've ever done.
And
it was just, I don't know if it's last year, the previous year, but it was just perfect weather. The sun was setting, the lake was crystal clear, so calm, and you're just swimming along, and it was just, very relaxing. It was still cold, but it was, enjoyable. And you sort of get 30, 40 people doing it?
Yeah. So hopefully we're hoping to grow that a little bit each year, but in small steps, because it's, with it being such a unique event, we want to make sure we get it right. And I think the 2 years we've done it so far, the atmosphere has been pretty cool. We've had the right people doing it with the right, turn up with the right attitude and really kind of buy into what we're trying to do. And there's
some cracking cakes.
I was just about to say, there's people providing cakes and flapjacks and coffees and stuff. So it's I would urge people to get involved, because it's very achievable in terms of a distance to swim, but it's more about the actual atmosphere and the event itself. Yeah,
you've been doing a bit of swimming lately, Hen. You gonna commit to doing that in September?
I will do it in September, but Budgie Smugglers may be a push too far.
Well, I'd already got into you about possibly bringing the drone as well, because we're really keen for a decent drone shot of the event. So that's your get out of jail card if you'd rather not swim.
Absolutely, I can't possibly swim if I'm controlling a drone.
Although I understand Adam's good with the drone, so I might say
Adam's a good swimmer. We'll get him swimming.
He's doing a triathlon for us as well. I think he's just started training for that. So yeah, another crazy chap. And then I'm starting to pull together my plans for what I want to do next. So I've done a couple of challenges myself.
Some big bike rides?
Yeah. I think the first proper thing I did was I cycled the coast to coast in a day. Went from Whitehaven to Sunderland, and which was really surreal because it was during the pandemic in 2021. So cycling through kind of towns and villages that were dead. There was no one there. It was just me on the bike and my dad following in a van in a almost creepy fashion.
Leave me alone.
It got to that point where one stage I was going up Hartside, which is obviously quite a long undulating climb, and then it gets steeper as you get to the top. And even just the build up to it, I was going quite slowly because I'm kind of conserving energy. And he was literally on my back wheel with his bumper, following out to stop and say, I won't use the language I used then, but I had to say, I'll meet you at the top. Yeah. So he did. So that was, that to date was the hardest thing I've done. That was really challenging, as much mentally as physically, because I didn't get across as quickly as I wanted to. Yeah. So I kind of got to probably Bishop Auckland way in the end. I had to take a bit of a detour, and it was really cold. It was starting to rain, and I still felt miles away. And I was literally getting to the point where you've done it yourself on the Teesdale way. I guess you get to a point where you've still got quite far to go, but you kind of start to think your body might not actually be able to manage it. But I managed to dig in. I had obviously support from my dad. At that stage, one or two others had turned up to cheer us on a little bit. So that morale boost kind of got me through. So did that, and then I did in, I think it was 2023, possibly. So me and Ben Snook, we played a game of rugby in the Darlington arena, and then we cycled 500 miles to the middle of France. We met our team in Samoa to play another game of rugby against a team in Samoa a week later. So,
did you both manage to play the full game then?
Oh, we didn't. I did. Yeah. So Ben being Ben, and I love the guy. He was brilliant company for that, and we've remained close friends since. So we did the 500 miles. We cycled to the rugby club in Samoa. And then on the Friday night at the rugby club, Ben decided, after one or two beers, to jump on one of the host's mountain bikes and fell off and broke his hand. So he was able to do the kickoff on the game on the Saturday, but then he had to shamefully retire from the pitch. So yeah, he let the side down there a little bit, although he'll maintain he did partake in both games of rugby. Yeah. But we raised an amazing amount of money with that. And again, Carver's supported that, as you have done with everything we've done so far. Obviously wearing the new shirt today, which has got your logo on it as well on the back. Absolutely. So yeah, that's my next challenge I'm looking at doing is again another cycle. I'm looking at probably doing 8 countries in 7 days. So my thinking is to start in North Wales, cycle across England up to Scotland, and then down to Newcastle, ferry across to Amsterdam, and then pick up obviously Holland, Belgium, Germany. And then Luxembourg and France, I think, completes the set in 8 days. So
playing that solo or with
I think Ben wants to do it again.
Yeah.
So possibly, a handful of people would be great. Too many, it becomes quite hard to manage. I don't mind.
There'll be volunteers for the ferry trip over.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. That's the worry, isn't it? Gets a bit loose in the ferry. You can't get the bike the next day. That's we try not to do that. So yeah, that's kind of in planning really. There's a lot to figure out. Mostly really the expense of it. We need to make sure that it's worthwhile for the foundation to do. But yeah, I like to try and think of things that are a little bit different. Hence the rugby and the cycling to France, because it's something that hasn't been done before. So it's just something that kind of catches the imagination if I can. So yeah, that's in planning.
I was going to say, if anyone's thinking of any silly events or even just little events and you want to raise some money, then yeah, Team Luke couldn't think of a better cause. So
that's very kind. Yeah, we I think it's important that we kind of push the fact that we're a volunteer-run charity. So any money raised for us goes into the work that we do. We don't take a pennies in any kind of any salaries or anything like that. We put everything into the actual foundation. So yeah, it's really important to us that we are kind of conscientious of what we do with money, and we make sure that we are sustainable. So yeah, if you fancy doing something, then please reach out, and we'll give you a nudge on social media.
Great.
I'm just trying to think of something for me to do now.
The swim's a start.
The swim's a start. The drone footage.
I'm not really sure that's pushing you out your comfort zone, though, Henry. That's the problem.
I'll do it in Budgie Smugglers. Oh, crikey. Very inspirational. Obviously, everything you're doing and have done so far is absolutely, needless to say, a very worthwhile cause and inspirational. What do you think's been the most rewarding part of setting up the foundation?
That's a tricky one, really. I think knowing that we're making a difference in terms of funding research. I think we've also helped one or two other charities set up. They've seen what we do and have been inspired. So we've certainly supported one or two charities to get off the ground, which has been quite rewarding to see. As daft as it sounds, the most rewarding moment I've had has been driving in another part of the country and seeing a Team Luke Foundation sticker in a car. A car window sticker. It actually made me cry because I just thought, you kind of expect to see it in your own town because I've handed loads out to people I know and certainly through the rugby community. Yeah. But being in a different place and seeing it was, that was kind of really hit it home moment, that one. That was, really nice to see.
Yeah, oh, that's lovely.
Absolutely.
So, the 10th of May, which is, if you're listening, this is coming out tomorrow, hopefully. So get yourself along to Darlington Rugby Club to the Team Luke Family Fun Day.
Yep.
Excellent.
Have a few beers and let the kids run right and let off a bit of steam.
Absolutely. Or if you want to have a run out with a rugby ball, get involved.
Have a few beers and then have a run out.
Even more fun.
That's a good idea.
Awesome. Mark, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Cheers.